It wasn't until I moved to Calgary, away from Lagos, that I had to almost like prove my Nigerianness. Not to people that were not Nigerian, but to Nigerians themselves. When you gave me the kola nuts, if you remember, my face was like, what is this? And it's almost like if someone quizzes you on something that you're supposed to know and you don't know, there's that feeling of, am I sure of what I'm saying?
So that's an interesting thought, because it might tie into another topic about imposter syndrome, maybe?
As you're doing it.
I tell you, it's 10 questions with Davina and 10 questions for Davina.
Welcome to 10 Questions with Davina, a personal development podcast with impactful discussions at its core. In each episode, I sit down with my guests, remarkable individuals who have faced life challenges head on and emerged stronger. And I ask 10 carefully crafted questions that uncover the heart of their experiences. We explore their dark moments, their breakthroughs, and the invaluable lessons we've learned along the way. My goal is simple yet profound: to provide you, my listeners, with real, raw stories that resonate with your own journey. Today, I will be speaking with Ian McDonald. Ian is dedicated to fostering connections, catalyzing collisions, and nurturing prosperity for emerging and high-growth ventures as part of KPMG Canada. With an award-winning career spanning 13 years in community and real estate development across Western Canada, coupled with 2 years growing a tech startup across the prairies, Ian is deeply passionate about community building, economic growth, and the success of businesses. In his capacity as business and innovation leader at KPMG Canada's Calgary office and leading KPMG high growth ventures from the Platform Innovation Center, Ian plays a valuable role in fueling the expansion of the tech ecosystem in Canada, in Calgary, and throughout the prairies. His responsibilities include facilitating meaningful connections between scale-ups and KPMG clients, ecosystem partners, as well as connecting founders to specialized services tailored for startups and scale-ups. Hi, Ian. How's your morning been or afternoon been?
Fantastic, Davina. Thank you so much for having me on 10 Questions with Davina. I'm so proud to be here with you today.
I'm very glad I have you here. After how much planning, like you're finally on the screen and we're here together, and I can't wait for this episode to come out. Okay. Now I'm going to get to the questions. My first one is, what were your biggest dreams or goals when you were growing up?
That's a great question. When I was young, and still to this day, it is one of the top goals that I have in my life. But at a very early age, my biggest goal and dream was to go to outer space. So I want to go to outer space very badly. That's one of my goals.
Why?
It's a good question. Well, obviously, I like science and sci-fi, Star Wars and Star Trek and all those things. But to me, it was something that would be very deep and profound. The ability to look back onto our planet, to look and see that everything that ever was in all time happens as happens right in front of you. I think that would be an amazing moment and experience to just witness our Earth from outer space. So to look back, not just necessarily to travel through space, but to go into outer space and to look back onto Earth.
Yeah. And do you like want to also step out of the spaceship and like walk on the, yes?
Yeah, I would spacewalk.
Actually?
Yeah. And many years ago, when Virgin Galactic started its company to take people to space, I applied for a job there, and it asked for rocket scientists, and it asked for, really, engineers and mechanics, and really specialized people. And then on the bottom of the application, it said, "Are you really good at making coffee?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll make you a really good coffee." Because I thought that if I could work there at Virgin Galactic, I might be able to get a friends and family discount, because I knew it would be expensive to go to space. So one day.
One day. And I hope I never knew this about you. So I'm really glad that I asked this kind of question so I can hear what people's dreams were or still are. So thank you, Ian.
Thanks, Savina.
Okay. Do you want to go by yourself or is it something you want to take friends with you or Kelly? No?
Oh, I'd love to take Kelly. Yeah. Now Kelly's afraid of heights, but it's probably a bit different going to space. So yeah, with family and friends would be amazing.
Okay. Okay. My next one is, could you walk us through your professional journey or career journey? Like, how did you get from the beginning to where you are today?
Yeah, so early days, my summer jobs included working for my dad, who had worked very hard in his career to the point where he had owned building supply stores, Beaver Lumber and Home Hardware, and a window and door manufacturing plant, and many other things. And so, as a summer job, I got to work at those locations, just in the yard, just sweeping, cleaning up, stocking shelves. And it was really important that my dad felt for me to get those experiences and just have jobs like that. So no privilege or extra opportunity. It was like I am working hard with everyone on the floor. So that was early days. And then later I worked at a marina on a dock as a summer job, and then to Earl's and the Keg, worked in the kitchen, then bartender, and then server, and then bar manager of the restaurant. And that was during university. And then outside of university, I got an opportunity to work in real estate development, where I started to do the sales and marketing for communities. And so that was the beginning. And then when the recession hit in '08, I got an opportunity to work at an advertising agency, which I had always wanted to do. And so that was a really interesting and eye-opening experience to work at a very large multinational ad agency. And then from that, I went back into real estate and continued on for over 13 years. And I did that across Western Canada. And it was really great, and had an amazing time, from multifamily, single family, estate community, mixed use residential, building and developing these communities for people. And it was awesome. But I did feel that the industry was lacking innovation. And so there was something that was sort of pulling at me, that I wanted to be a part of something that was really innovative and forward thinking. And so I joined a tech startup, and I helped grow that company across the prairies for 2 years. And I was the VP of marketing and sales for that company. And then an opportunity came up with KPMG here in Calgary to be their business and innovation leader. And I now lead their program for high growth ventures. So it went from, working the summer job type of world, the restaurant industry, right at the very bottom, into the real estate world, then into a tech startup, and now at a big four company. So it's been a pretty amazing journey. I'm very fortunate.
It is. My follow-up question is, at what point did you move to Calgary? Because I know you grew up in BC. I'm not sure which city exactly.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Okanagan. I was born in Penticton. I grew up mostly in West Kelowna. It was formerly known as West Bank. And then I went to high school on Vancouver Island. I lived in Vancouver. I've lived in Victoria, and I moved to Calgary in 2009. I've been here almost ever since, except for 8 months. I moved to Victoria and worked for a real estate developer out there, until I realized I very much missed Calgary and came back home. So yeah.
My face made a tiny shift when you said you missed Calgary, because Calgary is cold. Calgary is dry. I don't know. I don't know what else other than the people here. I don't.
See, you just mentioned the most important point. And so when I was in Vancouver and I moved to Calgary, that was the biggest, sort of factor, was the people. I now realize that I really love the people here in Calgary. And in Victoria, it's a wonderful place. My dad lives there. I've got lots of friends over in Vancouver Island, but it's the people that keep bringing me back to Calgary. It's the entrepreneurial nature of the city. It's the aggregate 333 days of sunshine, making it the sunniest city in Canada. So it might
So
be cold
sunny.
outside, but guess what? It's sunny today.
Sunny.
So it's our blue sky city.
So yeah, I like the winters because, okay, I don't like the winters, but the one thing I like about the winters is the sun. So I'll give Calgary that. I'll give Calgary that. Another follow-up question based on your story. I'm trying to remember what it was. Yes. So you worked in real estate, you've done marketing. My question now is, are there any skills that you've been able to transfer from when you're working in real estate to what you're doing today?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of transferable skills in any industry. And when I look at sales and marketing, I'm very much of the brain where one side is sales and the other side is marketing. And so I bring those two together, and I like to use the term smarketing, because when you bring sales, I know you laugh because it's a funny term. When you bring those two sides together, they work better, they work more efficiently, effectively, you get better results. So, understanding what the marketing vision is, what the messaging is, really helps when you're in sales and business development to see that through for the customer or the end user or company. So yeah, I think I've learned a lot in sales and marketing throughout my years and bringing that forward to what I'm doing today.
Okay. Now you've already talked a bit, but not too much about the fact that you grew up in BC and the Okanagan and how working with your dad a bit was like. So my question is, can you tell us more on what your parents or people around you did or didn't do that has helped you to get to where you are today? And not just the good. I want to hear what you're willing to share. I want to hear both sides of the coin.
I think the biggest thing was the opportunities that I was afforded because my parents works very hard to provide for my sister and I. And so one of the biggest opportunities that I have in my life was that I was able to go to boarding school on Vancouver Island. The school is called Shawnigan Lake School. And by no means were we the wealthiest family at the school. There were kids that were going to the school where families needed financial assistance. So it's not the perception sometimes is like it's just for rich people. That's not totally true. But I did have an opportunity to go to that school, which really opened a lot of doors to opportunity. I've met people that live from all around the world. So I got a great deal of international exposure to other cultures from the school. And yeah, and even to this day, I still stay in close contact with the house director that ran our house at the school. He actually played a part in the role that I have today at KPMG because he was in town. We went for a beer and he was asking me what I was doing after I'd left the tech startup. And he said, well, hey, let me make an introduction to another former Shawnigan alumni who's a mentor here in the city and works in the tech industry. And he then made an introduction to someone at Platform Calgary, who then gave me a tour of Platform. And then when I came home, I was so excited about it. I wrote all about it on LinkedIn and did a post. And then Jennifer Lucier, who's the CEO at Platform, saw that post and said, hey, who are you? Do you want to come by and we can meet? I'll give you a tour as well. And then during that tour, I learned that KPMG was a sponsor of Platform and at the KPMG pitch stage. And it really then started to open up doors and I applied for this role that I'm in today. So again, that's a long string of that opportunity over time that my parents had afforded for me. So that, and then on the sort of more challenging side, I would say, when my parents separated, when I was basically right when I left school and going into university, my parents had separated. And I think that was really challenging. And I took that really hard. And that was difficult in dating and relationships. And so I think for many years that impacted me. So yeah, so there's the good and the bad, but far more good than bad, far
Yeah.
more.
I'm definitely going to ask more questions on how the fact that your parents got divorced impacted your relationships, whether it was friendships or dating. But my first follow-up question is, would you say that the international experience you got at your boarding school almost influenced the interest you have today in different cultures? Because and it's genuine. It's not like, it's actually genuine.
I think that is probably a factor. I think that and coupled with just being curious, I think that's a big part of just who I am is just being curious and interested. I'm interested in facts. I'm interested in learning things, whether it's science and technology or just general people information. So I, yeah, I think I'm just a pretty curious person, but I think that started to open the door for me back in the day.
And to prove to you guys that Ian is so interested in culture, yesterday he gave me a cola notes. And when he gave me, I was like, what? Wait, what? I was shocked. I was surprised. So I brought it here with me. I don't know if you have yours with you, but
I do have mine with me.
yeah,
And I also have a few more as well of different
who gave you? That's my
colors.
first question.
I purchased them. I purchased them 2 days ago at a market in the Northeast. Oh, yeah. So I bought that and a case of Vitamalt for our friend Ijiro that organized a very special event last night that you and I were both at. So, I mean, we can save that for the end or we can talk about it now. I thought maybe in the introduction you wanted to talk about, you said, how's my morning going? how's my day going? I said, well, I mean, we could talk about how excited and
Last
on
night
a
it
high
was,
I
yeah.
am right now from last night, but whatever you'd like, we can talk about it later.
We can talk about it now because I'm already on the culture section of my questions. So for those of you, okay, not many people know, but for those of you that don't know, please correct my facts here. So ATB had a Black History Month event last night, and then it was looking at breaking boundaries, breaking barriers, and they had this whole mini fashion show. I say mini, but it was actually not mini. It was like how many different designers? I think 4 or 5.
I think there would have been 6 designers,
Yes,
so
6
yeah.
designers, different. Oh, I'm going to paste pictures of you and Kelly's outfits when I'm editing this video because everyone needs to see how beautiful that was. So they had different people, whether it was of Nigerian descent or like people like you going on the stage, walking, and it was so nice to see you wearing an agbada. Like I was just smiling, and I was like all my teeth were showing, and yes. So, what was that like when you got the request, or did you volunteer yourself to walk the
Well,
stage?
what else was I wearing? I had an agbada on, and then
Boy,
I had a fila.
the cow.
Yes. The cap, the fila, and what was that called? Do you remember what that was called?
That's the thing. I do not know, and I might be Yoruba, but I don't know genuinely.
A Abeti Aja.
Agbetiaja. I might be pronouncing this wrong. There might be people that are Yoruba.
I'm so every time I pronounce so we also have to go into backstory of like how Davina and I know each other.
Oh
But
yes.
yes, we didn't get to that, so we should get to that too. But every time I've pronounced a word, I've been corrected. Davina's always been like, "You're not saying it correctly," and she'll correct me. But the word means dog's ears, which I find really great and fitting for me because I love dogs. My wife Kelly tells me all the time, I'm like a dog. I was born in the year of the dog. And so it was so great to be wearing that as well with my Agbada.
Yes. Okay. And I don't know if it was me that taught you Oga, but
Yes, you did.
okay,
You did
yeah,
teach
yeah,
me
yeah.
Oga.
I taught you Oga, and then my friend and I, Favor, we gave you a Yoruba name, Darasimi. And how I even suggested that was I checked up the meaning of Ian, and I checked up the meaning of, okay, so I checked up the meaning of Ian, and based on what I saw, it meant like good, like, let me check it again. I'm checking again just to be sure. Yes, okay. The direct definition I saw online was God is gracious. When I think of grace, I think of goodness. So I was like, okay, Darasimi, because although Darasimi means God is good to me. And we can shorten that out to Darasimi, meaning good to me. So now there are 2 definitions where 1, you were actually very good to us during the internship. And 2, your name and the meaning of the full name are very similar. So yes, we've crowned you Darasimi. And from now on, that is your Yoruba name, unless someone changes it.
That's amazing. And what happened last night at the fashion show? What was the final moment of the fashion show that Jiro did that was very special?
Oh, okay. So the I think the main exec behind everything,
Tara
she,
Lockyer.
Tara
She's
Lockyer,
the chief people officer of ATB Financial.
the chief people officer of ATB Financial. So Ejiro Onagbakpo gave her an actual name, a Yoruba name, and it wasn't just I give you this name. No, it was almost like a mini naming ceremony because Nigerians and I'm sure other African cultures do this, where once you give birth to a child, you have to get elders to name that child. So I was given, my first name is Davina, my middle name is Toluanimi, my other name is Usapolo, and my last name is Eleshe. So those were names given to me 7 days after I was given birth to. So I was born on the 12th, my naming ceremony was on the 19th. So they all gather, elders gather from both sides, and they pray for the child. And it just shows how much intent there is when they're giving someone a name. So the name that they gave Tara yesterday, I remember the last one was Aduni. The first one was Ayo. I don't know I can't remember the exact full name. but that name was long. It had meaning, and it was all about the joy that she brings to the team. So I'm glad that I'm glad that they did that part. It was probably the most meaningful part for me. Second was the spoken word performances by Tarika. So,
That was amazing. And Maya Tafo was the designer that was flown in from Nigeria to come in and run the fashion show. And Ejiro, who leads the Black Team Network at ATB, ran that. And this is a volunteer group at their company to put this event on, and they did a phenomenal job. Yeah. And so you taught me the word oga, which means what?
boss.
Boss.
It's simultaneous. It's not, sorry, it's similar to chairman. So
So then
you can use it anywhere.
let me try a new word that I just learned recently. Buro.
Oh, because I'm a younger one. Yes. Yes, I will accept that name. Yes.
Nice.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Okay. So that's for Nigerian culture. Which countries have you been to? Because I know you've been to a lot.
I've been to a lot. Sorry, what does a buro mean? You got to
Oh, it's
define
like
what's
younger one.
younger one. Nice.
Yes.
Awesome.
So technically, I am your younger one. Because it's
That's
almost
right.
like
That's right.
you're a mentor to me, and yeah, quite
And
literally,
then,
I'm a
so I
younger
think
one.
this is sort of halfway in the 10 questions with Davina, but I feel like I'm starting to ask you questions because I was like, I want to say it's 10 questions for Davina because I love learning from other people. I love asking questions, but I do have to ask you, how did we first meet? Where did that come from?
Okay. Wow. Okay, this is actually really okay. So last year, March, my dad came across this like poster that KPMG and Icon Talent and then Able Foundation were collaborating to get 15 Black high school students as interns and also give them a scholarship for university. And when I first saw the post, I was like why? Why? My dad was very adamant on me applying. Both parents, actually, they were very adamant on me applying. So I did. On my first day, for my first day, you're my PM, you're my project manager, or my performance manager, sorry. And you were asking us, as in my other intern, Yossi and I, questions, like so many questions, like background information. And it gave me the opportunity to speak and actually think a lot about what I want to do in the future and goals I have for myself. I think during that internship, I realized that I'm really interested in health policy. Even though I didn't do any health policy related work, how I realized I'm interested in health policy was listening to the internal case competition for interns. So even though I wasn't a part of it, there was a pitch. The pitch that actually won, the Calgary team won. So the pitch that won, they were really focused on using AI to shorten ER wait times. And they gave a very touching story of how someone that came in with, I think, either a pancreas issue, a liver issue, he ended up becoming like elevated and he ended up dying. So I was like, wow, there are issues in not just Nigeria's system, Canada, the US, everywhere. And if I can do my part to help that, I've done my job. So
Amazing.
that's how we
Amazing.
met.
And during your internship, what were some of the things that I wanted you to do and get a lot of experience doing?
Networking. That was like a networking crash. Okay, not a networking crash course, but it was like very heavy on networking. Almost every single thing I know today about LinkedIn and selling myself is from the one and only
No,
Ian
don't.
McDonald.
You're very kind. You're very
Yes.
kind.
But
Awesome.
speaking of networking, have you always been an extroverted, outgoing person?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I think I've always been, as my parents would say, I've always been a rambunctious child. I've always had lots of energy. Yeah, I think I would probably, when I was young, go up and maybe talk to strangers. The, the moment that I remember that really started to get me out of my shell was when I was working at Earl's in Penticton, and I started washing toilets and vacuuming the floors and cleaning dishes, and it was the day opener routine. And so I got there early in the morning, I cleaned the restaurant, I got it all set up, and then I would go into being in the dish pit. And then from there, I got to do portion and some kitchen prep, and then I got to cook in the Forno oven. And when I was at the Forno oven, I was throwing pizzas up in the air, and people were coming up, and kids were talking, and I was talking back, and boss that was there said, "Would you like to be on the floor? Would you like to serve?" And because he saw something in me, and this was a very pivotal moment because I started to serve, and not many people, if you ever worked in a restaurant, make it out of the kitchen and serve on the floor. And so I got to start to talk to people, and it's being forced really, because like that's your job now. You've got to go talk to people, and you got to go to another table, and you want to make it interesting and not monotonous, and you want to stand out. And so I started to learn very quickly how to talk to people, and that was really the start for me in, I guess it's a training ground for networking.
What are some of the lessons that you learned being on the floor that still hold true today?
Sell the sizzle. That's actually a famous statement from the keg. Sell the sizzle. So you're not selling the steak, you're selling the sizzle.
What
Going
does
to
that
want to talk
mean?
about, so you're not talking about like, this is an 8-ounce steak and this, just here's meat that you're going to eat. You're selling the sizzle of it, the excitement, oh, this is juicy oh, it's a wonderful cut. You're selling more than just what the product is. You're selling the sizzle and the excitement. And one of the things you would do is you would walk by, if you had a really, beautiful plate of food, you'd walk by a table that hasn't ordered yet, and they'd see it and they go, "Oh, that's what I want." And so you'd learn these things of like how to get people excited, which again started my career in real estate sales and marketing. So that's a lot of stuff that I learned from way back in the day.
Okay. Now we live in a world where people are very self-centered. So it's like me, what can I gain? What can I have? How am I benefiting from this relationship? Now, my next question is when creating connections, and we're trying to create connections that last, how do we get out of that mindset of I'm not looking for what I can gain or what you can give me? I'm just trying to make sure that we are like, how do we go beyond? I don't even know how to properly phrase this question. How do we go beyond that? What can I gain from this relationship when I'm making a connection?
Yeah, that's a big part of my role, is to not treat connections and interactions as transactions. They're not meant to be that. It's meant to be relationship building. And I'm here to help others. If it's just an introduction, if it's just supporting someone, maybe it's just giving some advice and guidance or getting them connected with someone at the firm that's, very experienced and is a leader in their area. Because I'm not a tax specialist or an auditor or, that's not my specialty, but I work with lots of people that are. So the goal is to understand that if you can help build a relationship and build and gain trust with people, is that they're going to remember you by that. And down the road, over time, it will show, opportunities will come from it. Someone might reach out and say, I remember you and you were talking about this, and you know what, we have a need for this, or I know someone that has a need for this. And so you're planting seeds, and you just can't look at it as a transaction, and you can't look at it as a short-term thing. This is a long-term relationship that you're building. And I like to use Ted Lasso's quote, a quote that my father used at our wedding. It was the quote as he wrapped up his speech. And that is, be curious, not judgmental. And I think that's really important for people, is to just come into things with more curiosity. If you can listen and ask questions and understand what are their pain points, what are they going through, then you'll be able to offer advice instead of just going in right away with, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want. You got to find out what the other person wants and what they need.
Yeah. Okay. So that way it's not transactional, but you're actually doing, like you said, planting trees. Okay. A question I want to ask, and I think I asked a similar question when I was interviewing Dennis, or I may not have, but it's about setting expectations for people. When you're dealing with, because you both are very similar in the sense that you're very big on connecting people. So
Yeah.
if let's say I need help with something and you're not able to, okay, let me use this perfect example. When I was learning about podcasting and editing and whatever I needed to do, you connected me with the podcasters behind Between Two Dots.
Yeah.
And I had a coffee chat with one of them.
You
And
did.
that I actually, so do you see what I mean? So my question now is, when you're dealing with multiple people, not every person is dedicated to what they're doing. So what if I didn't show up to that meeting? Like that might say bad to you. Like
Yep.
my question now is how do you continue to create those connections with other people, but not set too high on unrealistic expectations for them?
That's a really good question. And that is a challenge because some people can let you down and you've made an introduction and you're really hoping and trusting that they're going to do a good job. I think it
Yeah.
comes down to being honest with the person that you're making the introduction to. If it's just a general introduction, you know, an email, a chat on LinkedIn or something, it's probably going to be fairly general. If it's someone that you've done a lot of business with, you really trust personally, have had a lot of great experience with, you're probably gonna pick up the phone. Maybe you're gonna be a part of that introduction in person. I think it's a different level of how you introduce that person that's gonna make a difference. Also, when people get introduced, it's always good to reach back to that person and thank them for making that introduction. I know you're great at doing that, but you'd be surprised. Not a lot of people think to reach back to the person that helped make a connection and thank them. So that's important because then that person will think, wow, they were grateful of that introduction. I'm gonna introduce them again. But if you think about it, if you keep going back to the well and you're asking for more and you're not ever getting sort of thanked for it, sometimes it's just as simple as a thank you. It doesn't have to be reciprocated by, what have you done for me and how have you scratched my back? So,
Okay. Now we talked a bit about traveling and I want to hear some unforgettable travel stories because I love hearing.
thank you. Well, Kelly and I love to travel. Before I met Kelly, I had been on some pretty big journeys around the world. I've backpacked twice solo, one time for 7 months through Southeast Asia and Australia, and then another time for 5 months through Central America, all by myself with a backpack. But the travel journey that I want to share that's most special in my life, more special than either of those, is when Kelly and I decided to take a sabbatical and travel around the world. And so I'm not going to tell you when we started to do this because it will come to be very apparent shortly. We started our journey and landed on Valentine's Day in Taiwan. And we journeyed through and traveled through Taiwan and then on to Bali, where I proposed to Kelly to be my wife in Bali. And then from there, we went to Angkor Wat in Cambodia. And at that time, something was happening around the world that was getting quite important, which is, yes, as you mouthed it, COVID. We didn't know really what was going on when we left. When we landed in Taiwan, pilot on the plane was like, this is what's going to happen. You're going to go through temperature checks. You need to sign this form that you're healthy. It was using sanitizer and everyone had masks on. And it was incredible. Like they had it well before the rest of the world became in lockdown. So we got to experience that in Taiwan. And then every place we traveled to next, things were getting bigger and travel was starting to slow down. By the
You
time we got
kept
to Cambodia,
traveling?
we did keep traveling.
You didn't go back.
Well, I'll tell you when we did. So we and we had a debate on that too, whether we would. So when we were in Angkor Wat, at that point, there were very few people flying and traveling around the world. And I'd been to Angkor Wat years before when I was traveling solo through Southeast Asia. And this time when I was there, there'd normally be thousands of people at Angkor Wat's at the ruins, which is one of the wonders of the world. And this time there was maybe only 100. So we had that whole place to ourselves walking around, and that experience is unbelievable. From there, we went to Bangkok, and our visa got rejected to go to India because we were going to continue traveling around the world. This is part of our around the world journey. And so at that point, we had to make a decision. Do we fly back home or do we stay in Thailand and go up to Chiang Mai? And then our prime minister came on the news to say, asking every Canadian to come back home. So we said, okay, we're going to come back home. And we did. Although when we came back to Canada, when we arrived at the airport, there was no hand sanitizer and temperature checks. All there was being asked on a computer screen, are you traveling with marijuana? So I do have to say that from February 14th to March, I think we got back March 17th or March 18th. I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't have better protocols in place when we landed because we'd been through really strict protocols much earlier on. But yeah, that was a really unforgettable trip. that got cut short because of COVID.
Do you ever want to continue it?
Yes, we do. Absolutely, we do. Yeah.
Okay. When you do, or if you do, I'm looking forward to seeing pictures because, yes, on LinkedIn, wherever, I'm always looking forward to seeing pictures.
Well, Davina, I think we're going to have to add a stop in our journey around the world because when we go that direction, I think we need to stop in Nigeria.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Hopefully, if I'm home back then, yes. Yes, you do.
Perfect.
I don't even, now I think about it, and I was thinking about it last night, that it wasn't until I moved to Calgary, away from Lagos, that I had to almost like prove my Nigerianness, not to people that were not Nigerian, but to Nigerians themselves. So I would hear
Mm.
things like, you don't look Nigerian, you don't look West African, you don't sound, and I'm like, what do you mean I don't sound Nigerian? So I think it was even yesterday when you gave me the kola nuts. And based on my knowledge, it's only Igbo people that do that. But now I know it's like more than just Igbo. When you gave me the kola nuts, if you remember, my face was like, what is this? And Lanre, the person that designed your outfits, was like, it's a kola nut. And I was like, so that was like a kind of shocking moment to me. It's how best do I explain what I'm trying to say it? It's almost like if someone quizzes you on something that you're supposed to know and you
Mhm.
don't know, there's that feeling of, am I sure of what I'm saying? So that was how it was for me. And I think building on what I was saying, I don't speak any proper Nigerian language. I understand a bit of Yoruba. I used to say that someone can sell me in Benin and I wouldn't know that I've been sold. So like I just, yeah.
So that's an interesting thought because it might tie into another topic about imposter syndrome, maybe.
Because you're doing it.
I tell you, it's 10 questions with Davina and 10 questions for Davina.
I like this episode so far. I love this episode so far. It's different. Yes.
Different.
Okay. I didn't even know that this was. When did I first hear about imposter syndrome? I think when I was 15. I think so. My question for you is, at what point did you realize that fear has had a significant impact on your life?
To pinpoint the exact time is difficult.
Yeah.
I think it's always been there. And it's tough, and it's still tough today. It's getting better, but it's difficult. And it's not just imposter syndrome, it is a feeling of not being good enough. And I've have a wonderfully supportive wife that does tell me regularly, I am good enough and I am doing a good job. But it is challenging to have imposter syndrome, despite accomplishments, despite praise. Um, I'm not really good at taking compliments very well. I'm quite dismissive of them. When someone asks me to be on a podcast or be interviewed, I go, come on, there's 100 better people suited to be on it. And I do truly mean that. There's many other people out there that I think are amazing. So, like I don't, yeah, often find myself is still feeling that to not being good enough.
Okay. And when we're talking to each other before this interview, you told me two things. The first one was at some point you were afraid to quit.
Mm,
And another one was at some point you were afraid to get married because you were scared of getting divorced.
mm,
So do
yeah.
you want to talk more about
So
either of those?
yeah, so the first one, do I want to talk more about it as you've introduced it into the conversation? Well, I guess I am now, Davina.
Share what you're willing to share.
Yeah. But feel free to, yeah, if you don't want to. So we did discuss this in the pre-interview. Well, so yeah, in earlier part of my career, I knew I was a job that I wasn't really happy at. And I don't know exactly where it came from, whether it's thinking of my parents, maybe my dad, wanting me to be successful in business, that, I just knew this wasn't the right role and company for me, but I just didn't have the courage to quit. I just thought I had to keep going. And unfortunately, it just got to a point of really self sabotaging. It just not knowing how to quit, not knowing what the next thing would be and where I would go to next. So I think that's a challenge about, yeah, knowing when you should leave. And it's okay. And I tell that to some people is like, it's okay to leave a job. It doesn't have to be for forever. If it's really not serving you and you're not happy, then, find something else and it's okay. And your career is not just always this progression of one step after another in a ladder that you're constantly going up. It's ups and downs. You'll take a drop in salary, you'll change titles, it might go down, it might go up. Don't look at that stuff as being so important. Being fulfilled in your role, having purpose, enjoying what you do, delivering impact, these are important things to look at. And so, yeah, I think from that experience, it was difficult for me to know when to quit. And then on the relationship side, earlier on with dating and relationships, I think I was impacted quite a bit by my parents' divorce. And so I just thought in my head, well, I don't want to get divorced as well. I don't want that impact on my future children or what that would be like. So I thought, I've got to be really, really careful in a relationship that I don't, pick the wrong person because I don't want it to end up like that. And I think that caused a lot of strain and challenges for me in relationships early on.
Have you heard of this term called analysis paralysis? Yes?
I think I have.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Well, the person that introduced me to this term is almost like a second father figure to me. His name is Carl Ogle. And then I what happened was I had the idea for this podcast early on, like 2022. And I would watch so many different YouTube videos, talk to people. I was getting the same answers and I just didn't start it. And he was like, Davina, you know what? You're overanalyzing every single thing and it's
Mm,
preventing you from making a decision that will help you go forward. So when you're talking about trying to choose the most perfect partner
mhm.
and how that kind of almost delayed how early you decided to get married. That was the first thing that came to my head. Analysis paralysis.
Now, I should also add though that I had a list of things that I look for in a woman.
Okay.
And interesting enough, Kelly and I were just in the Okanagan visiting friends that I went to university with. And I came across that list that I had and I read it out and Kelly checks every one of those boxes.
Ash.
So, yeah, actually. So, as she said, and I said in our wedding vows that we were both worth each other's weight. So there is that too, being worth the wait. But I agree that that analysis paralysis can be stifling in a career, in a relationship, anything that you do. So you're right, that can be a real thing.
A question I wanted to hear your opinion on. Two questions actually. I'll ask the first one. The first one is, how do you work through moments of self-doubt and regain confidence?
Hmm. Well, I have to bring up Kelly again because she's a big part of that. So, especially during COVID, that we're both working together at home and we're in a small space, but we loved it. We actually loved working so closely together. And we've also joked that we're like colleagues and coworkers, even though we work at two different companies. But if something was challenging in work, the laptop can be shut, the Zoom call ends, and we can go for a walk along the river and we can talk about our challenges and what we're going through and support each other. So I would say Kelly's been a big support. And then other friends, family, mentors, people that I look up to in the community that I would reach out to for advice and guidance and support. I think it's really important that we need each other for that.
I really love that you mentioned people in your life, not just your wife, Kelly, but also other people in your life that have helped you
Of
get to where
course.
you are today. Okay.
Yeah.
My second question is, are there any external factors like societal expectations or the workplace culture that have made dealing with imposter syndrome harder for people?
I think over time, and I think it's because of age and just understanding that it doesn't matter as much. What other people think doesn't matter as much. And I don't want to make that sound like, you can do whatever you want in a negative way and like not worry about other people's thoughts of you and the repercussions. Yeah, I want to talk about something that I just saw in the news today, but I don't because I don't want to get into anything political, but it's been a bit troubling for me
I don't
since I,
mind.
I watched it earlier today. No, I won't address it, but
Okay.
it's concerning when people say things and do things without any regard for other people. So, to that point, I think you do still have to care about what other people think, right? Because on the extreme side, if you don't care, then you can be a tyrant and you can be, just megalomaniacal. You can just be like, you know, so there's that side. But I think just as a person that's looking to do well and work hard and be a good person and be a good citizen, that just shouldn't let everything bother you and impact you. And if we look at social media and we look at this perfection and we look at all of these things, I believe that comparison is the thief of happiness, and that we shouldn't have to compare ourselves to others all the time. And I do think that is a factor for people with this imposter syndrome, and how it can be challenging. So yeah, for a while there, I stopped being on any social media. I got off it completely because I was working with a coach, and she asked me the question, if I say comparison's the thief of happiness, what do you think? What's the first thing that comes to mind? And instantly it was, I got to get off of all of social media because I was letting it impact me in a way that was not healthy. So that would be one of the things that I think of when I think of imposter syndrome and how to overcome it is, you shouldn't really care so much about what other people think. Your network, your friend group, the people that care about you are really what matters most, and that you're, being a good person. And yeah, so that's a couple of my thoughts.
What was that break like for you? Like the social media break? Did you ever feel disconnected?
I think I tried harder than to reconnect with other people, but I also think that I didn't necessarily miss as much. Maybe with close family, like seeing what they're doing, nieces and nephews and photos that would come up. I think that was probably the hardest part because then, people don't think to, people don't send out Christmas cards with their family anymore, or some do actually. The friends that we're visiting Kelowna still do every year, but that starts to change. And so how do you stay connected and see the people that you love and care about?
Okay, I asked that because I'm not on TikTok. I realized that it takes up too much of my time. So I left it in 2021, and I have screens in. So it limits my YouTube and Instagram usage. I use Instagram like once a day for 15 minutes. And sometimes I feel bad because people are like, oh, what's your Instagram? And I'm like, I can't open it right now. So I feel like I'm disconnected, but the benefits are more than the disadvantages.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's funny. I actually just went through a very big cleanse. Actually, sorry, I shouldn't say cleanse. It's a fast, although it turned into a bit of a cleanse. But I actually went for 80 hours without eating, and I just had water and decaf coffee. And so, yeah, you're kind of stunned by that. And
Yes.
so, after going through this fast and then introducing food slowly and the right, healthy food, I've felt this entire time and known that I have been on social media and on YouTube less, not by choice. Like I didn't consciously say I want to be on social media less. It's just happened. It's just funny that like there is this bit of like cleansing that's happened because from eating and changing my diet that has then impacted how I'm with social media. Now, the one caveat there is yes, I'm still very active on LinkedIn. I'm a big supporter and fan of connecting in the business community and telling the stories of others and companies and individuals in the community and sharing exciting events. And I'm sure I'll be posting about the experience last night at the fashion show. So
My next question is, how do we go beyond doing good things for external acknowledgement? And I asked this because someone recently gave me feedback that I need to develop tough skin in the sense that I shouldn't wait for a pat on the back before I continue what I'm doing that's good. That's why I was asking this question.
yeah, that's interesting. I mean, for 10 questions with Davina, what do you get from it? What do you feel, because you're not doing this for work, you're not doing this for anything that, is that it's doing it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Tell me where you see, that validation for just even doing this podcast.
The validation is more of internal. So when I finish a nice conversation, and so far all the guests I've had have been really, really good, and I'm glad about that. So when I finish a nice conversation and I'm able to like pinpoint things that I learned, I'm like, wow, this is like a push to keep going.
Mhm.
So even though I'm not as popular as other already established podcasts and I don't have as great following, I'm telling myself that it's like almost like what you said, like you're planting a seed. And right now I've put it in the ground. And all I have to do is water it and keep
Yeah.
watching it. Cause
Mhm.
I was telling someone I don't know when it was. I think it was last week, Saturday. Yes. That only a fraction of people that start podcasts get to the 40th episode. And only an even smaller fraction get to 400. And my fear is I will put in so much mental and physical energy into this thing and I will not get past 10. So I'm going to take it one day at a time. And my goal is get to 40, get to 400 and keep going. So yeah, when it comes to validation, I look at what am I working towards? And right now, what I'm working towards is continue to share stories like yours, like Nadine's, like Grace Oladipo that I had as my second episode. Like just keep sharing those because I don't know what people might learn from them. I know what I'm learning from them, but it's
Mhm.
funny how human beings work. You hear something, we can both hear the same message and we take two different things from it.
Well, look at this. Like, you're not even doing this for advertisers and for money right now. Like, this episode is not sponsored. And, one day you probably are going to get sponsorships. You're going to like, yeah, you could. But just think about this. Like, you authentically want to ask these questions and you want other people to hear what you hear too. So you want to share this knowledge and this information with other people. And so that's really great. That's, an intrinsically motivating thing. And I think of, why did I start doing posts on LinkedIn about, in case you missed it, these are the, 5 articles and stories that are happening in Calgary and Canada in tech. And this all started because in the morning I would wake up and I get a list of headlines emailed to me, stories. I subscribe to different newsletters that have these interesting, bits of information and infographics. And I just like skimming through them and I like seeing what's out there and learning and just getting that exposure. And so I thought, you know what? I bet other people might like that too. So I thought, why not? Let me just do this post. I have nothing to gain from it. I'm not doing it for sponsorships. Work is not paying me for do this. I do these posts outside of work hours in my own spare time. Yes, I'm scratching my marketing itch because I do like to share content like that. That's actually a fun part of it. But I think what's really important, and this is what we all need to do here in Calgary and Alberta and Canada, is we have to share stories of others. We have to talk about the companies, the entrepreneurs, the businesses, the technology and innovation that's happening. We want to share this with the world because we want to lift those people up. And it just helps our economy. And then more people move here and more people have a greater quality of life and a better community. So I think, that's really the goal. And sure, do people come up and say to me like, "Oh, I know you because of LinkedIn and this," and I'm just sort of like, I'm a bit dismissive. Like, it doesn't go to my head. It's more about like, did you find those articles interesting? Did you learn about a company that you didn't already know about? That's gratifying and that's satisfaction for me that I put in that work. So that's that's basically how I feel about sharing content.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And I like this episode a lot because you're asking me questions also. Because it
It's
part of me, I
conversation.
realize, yes, a part of me has become very, I don't know what the word is. I hesitate before I share a part of myself. And I realized that, I don't know when I realized that I only shared like one personal story in one of my episodes. And I'm like, no, I need to not be more vulnerable where it becomes a chore, but like be willing to share my story. A friend of mine asked me that, so are you sharing your story? Because I was talking about how I love to hear people's stories and whatnot. And I was like, my initial response was, I don't have anything to share. But I paused and I was like, maybe I actually do. So yes. My
Yes, you
final
do.
question. Yeah.
Yes, you do. You have a story to share. We all have
I
a story.
Yeah. One of my final questions is, what is one piece of advice you would give to younger Ian? And it doesn't have to be like when you were 10 years old. It could be last year.
So I can't do just one. I have to do 5. I'm
I
sorry,
don't mind.
because it's too difficult to just do one. If I was to talk to my younger self, I would say be active, stay active, be more active. Physical exercise is so important for your health. I would just suggest that to myself, to my younger self. I would tell my younger self, just invest in the S&P 500. Don't do anything else. Just like put your money in that, ride out the index. Just don't try to pick and choose stocks or companies. Just invest your money early and put it away. That's also important. Like just save your money and invest it. Just put it there. Eat healthier. Drink less and eat healthier. That would be, such a big point because there's no question your older self will look back and say, I wish I was healthier. I wish I treated my body better because we only have one body. Don't be so hard on yourself. That would be ever since day one, it would be don't be so hard on yourself because that, leads to bigger imposter syndrome and not feeling good enough. And then lastly would be breathe. When I talk or when I'm excited, it's go, go, go. And I don't feel like I have deep enough breaths. And so if I could practice better breathing, and from that, that also tells you to, be patient, be mindful. So breathe. Those would be my 5 things that I would tell my younger self.
Okay, so comments on the last 3. The first one about drinking. And I think I told you this, but about me not drinking. And I find that interesting. I find it interesting because you go into spaces or parties. You go into spaces and people are like, oh, are you legal? I'm like, yeah, I am. But I just don't want to drink. So part of me is always wondering, because I search online and I'm like, oh, are there any effects of having one drink? So I don't know.
Can I add one point to the drinking thing? So years ago when I was younger, the government with a health food guide said, a couple drinks a week, wine was good for you. And then later it would be like, hey, it's now only 3 drinks or 2 drinks or whatever. And now it's 0. It's 0. No drinks are healthy for you. Period. End of story. It's not healthy. They're now wanting to put the same label and warnings they have on cigarettes on all alcohol. So it's just not healthy. It's not good for you. So I'm not gonna I still do drink occasionally. If I'm at events, I try to just stick to 0% beer because people think you're enjoying, and there's some really great 0% beer out there. But yeah, you're not gonna be 80 years old and look back and say, you know what? I wish I drank more 18, $22 cocktails at nightclubs when I was younger. Like no one in their future life is ever gonna say, I wish I drank more when I was younger.
And the reason I bring this up is because like you see other people doing it, and a part of you asks yourself, am I missing out on anything? But now I'm like, I'm not. Like I think I'm okay. I'm not. So that's one part. The second one was not being too hard on yourself. And
Mhm.
that really hit home for me because I'm always trying to look for what can I do better? What can I do more? How can I do more? And I don't like based on your experience, is this like a cycle? Does it never end?
Well, it is tough because and someone brought this up to me. They're like, "Well, what if that is your superpower that you're hard on yourself because then it pushes you to be better and do better and work harder." And I'm like, I can't seem to reconcile that thought because it there probably has to just be a balance there, right? Because you don't want to be so hard on yourself that it's debilitating and depressing. You do want to improve and iterate and learn. And so there is a level of like being hard on yourself. And maybe that's not the right way, is like you want to push yourself, you want to improve, you want to be better tomorrow than you were today. But then again, how do you reconcile that part of feeling not good enough?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the third part about breathing, actually your fifth point on breathing, I find that very interesting because we do it every day, but sometimes we forget to take deep breaths. They're really calming. I don't understand
Hmm.
why exactly they are. I find it
Hmm.
really calming. Now we're at that point in the episode where I ask my guests to ask me one question. But you've already asked me a lot of questions. But anyways, ask me.
Well, actually, that's interesting because I was going to ask you the same question that you asked me, which was, what would you tell your younger self? But I'm going to ask you a different one. And this one is, it's not meant to be a morbid question. It's, if you're to look, at your funeral one day and someone is giving a eulogy for you, what do you want them to say about you and about your time on earth? What are the words that they would use, and what stories would you want them to share and tell about you?
Okay.
And let's hope this eulogy is many, many, many years in the future, and you live a very, very long life. And thanks to technology and innovation, it's well into the hundreds. So, well,
I don't know if
so
I want to be here for that long. Okay, continue.
well, and who knows? In the future, it might be the singularity where we actually become part of a computer, and that's a whole other podcast, but we won't get into that. But you can look up what the singularity is. So, yeah, what would you want to be said about you at your eulogy?
Okay. Now, when you told me about this question a bit before, like you already told me that you're thinking of asking me this question. So I planned what I was going to say to an extent. And the first thing that came to my mind was I was listening to this episode by Terry Savelle Foy. She's like a life coach, a dream coach. She talks about like goals, goal setting and whatnot. And one of the questions that she asked was think to yourself, someone's reading your eulogy, almost like what you just said. And what is something that you want them to say to you? So I tried to think, I think I was 14 or 15. And that influenced my values. I'm pulling up my phone because my lock screen is it's inverted, which is very sad. But I can paste a proper picture
I
of
can
it.
I can see
You
it.
can?
I am trustworthy, reliable, emotionally mature, respectful, and courageous.
Okay, so yeah. And I am not to the extent that I want to be. And a part of me is being hard on myself that I need to be more trustworthy. I need to be more reliable because these are characteristics that I value in other people. So I'm like, why not have it to myself or in myself? When I want someone to read my eulogy, I want them to state specific examples of how I have been reliable. When my yes has been yes and my no has been no. When I've said that I will do this tomorrow and I actually did it. When I've said I'm not doing this and I didn't do it, as opposed to going back on my word. Like yesterday, I said I was going to leave at 9 o'clock. At 9:45, Davina election was still there. So,
But you were having
so
fun at the
I
event.
mean, I was, but I had work to do at home. So, like learning how to find that balance between, like, a part of me is like, God forbid if I die today, God forbid if I die today. No one will be able to say any of that when it comes to me. I don't know if I've been able to prove to other people that I'm trustworthy. There is more to trust than telling the truth. And I'm still working on being emotionally mature. I'm still working on being loving. I'm still working on being courageous because sometimes having conversations can be scary. Whether it's you're asking for something, you're asking for help. I find asking for help hard because you don't know if they're going to say yes or no. And you don't know how they're going to interpret how you asked for that. So, yeah, thinking about death is morbid, but it influences your decisions today. So that is my take on it. What would it be for you?
Well, it's like using the saying, start with the end in mind. Consider the end. What is, if you're doing a project for school or you're working at a company and you've got some, like, what's the end result that you're looking to do? If you're designing a building, what does the finished product look like? So I think it's a good thing to think of what does that look like for the end, for that eulogy. And then looking back over time, what are people going to say and remember you by? For me, that I was a loving husband. I was a big supporter of our community, that I lifted people up. I supported people. I gave my time. I cared deeply. I I was funny and used laughter and you know warmed up people's hearts. I think it's all of those things. And I think it's all really connected to people because that's the thing that's going to matter most. And what people remember in a legacy is how you made them feel. So that would be for me.
Yeah. And something else I wanted to mention when I was thinking about this question before is I look up to my parents a lot. I don't understand how they do it. they're like the most giving people I've ever met. And I'm almost the entire opposite. Because before I give something else, I think to myself, okay, do I need this? So it's almost like I need to learn that habit of sacrificial giving. And so my mom's 50th birthday is coming up and we're doing the surprise for her. I don't even care. Yeah, I'll make sure this episode, oh, I've spoiled the surprise. I was thinking to myself, I'll make sure this episode doesn't come out until after her birthday, but I wanted to edit it immediately. We'll figure out how to do that. So yeah, we're doing the surprise for her. And people are sending videos of times that she has helped them or she has been there for them. And the question I was asking myself was, when have I ever been there for a lot of people? When have I ever helped a lot of people? And I'm 18, but then that's not an excuse. So,
Davina, I promised I wasn't going to say this during the episode, but when I was your age, look, don't be so hard on yourself at your age. As you get older, you're going to go through life and you're going to experience many things. And yeah, probably in the early years, you're more taking than giving. But think about a baby. A baby is taking too, right? Well, it's true. So like in your younger years, until your older years, until you become wiser, your wealth gets bigger, you have more time, you start to value things differently, and then you give back. So I don't think you have to put such pressure on yourself to be this perfect person now that down the road, and I'm sure it's going to get to you much sooner than many other people out there. I wasn't like I am today. I wasn't as generous with my time as I was when I was younger. And that just shows how we change and be better people over time and learn from mistakes and all those things. So don't be so hard on yourself. You've got plenty of time ahead.
okay. Well, as always, thank you, Ian. I'm very glad that we had this conversation. I will either edit the parts about the surprise out so that because my mom will watch my episode, so that she doesn't hear this portion.
Well, you're talking about it now, so you have to edit this out too.
This would be a blooper. This would be a blooper on Instagram. This would be a blooper after March 11th. This would be a blooper. But anyways, thank you, Ian, for coming on here. Thank you for agreeing. Yeah, even though, because you were telling me that you haven't had the hardest, most difficult life, but you still have a lot of stories. You have a ton of stories to share. And I'm glad that you shared them with me and with people listening.
Thank you so much, Davina, Aburo. Thank you.
Yes. I don't know if we're supposed to break the collar notes or something, but I just have it on my desk.
I just broke it. So
you did? Okay, now I'm gonna ask you a question. Okay, they're actually not hard to break.
Yeah.
It just fell out of my hand. Yes.
I've never seen the inside of a collar nut before.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ian. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Bye, Davina.